Your life as every rank of Kundalini awakening. Level 1, the sleeper. You are 32 years old and you have been doing yoga for 2 months. You started because your lower back hurt and your coworker mentioned a Tuesday class at a studio 4 blocks from your apartment. The studio smells like cedar and clean sweat. You go twice a week. You feel better afterward, your back loosens, you sleep slightly better. That is the whole story, as far as you know. You have heard the word Kundalini before. It was in a podcast. Someone called it a coiled serpent energy at the base of the spine. You did not think much of it. You are not that kind of person. On a Wednesday in November, you are in Savasana at the end of class. The instructor dims the lights and says something about breath. You are not paying attention. And then something small and electric moves up your spine. You sit up. You look around. Nobody else moved. The person next to you is still flat on her mat with her eyes closed. You think you pulled a muscle. You drive home. You make dinner. You do not think about it again. But the sensation does not go away entirely. It sits somewhere just beneath your sternum. A warmth. A frequency. Like a note played too low to hear clearly but high enough to feel. You do not have a name for it yet. Level 2, the opening. You start reading. You find Gopi Krishna first, then Swami Vivekananda, then the more academic work of Lee Sanella. You order 2 books from a seller in Bangalore. You start a second yoga practice at home, 20 minutes each morning before work. You find a breathwork class. You find a meditation teacher who has a sliding scale. 6 months in, the experiences intensify. During a seated meditation on a Tuesday afternoon, you feel a column of heat move from your coccyx to the base of your skull. It takes approximately 4 seconds. You are shaking when it finishes. Your hands are wet. You sit in the same position for another 11 minutes because you're not sure you can stand. That night, you sleep 10 hours and dream in a language you do not speak. The experiences begin arriving without invitation. A flash of white light behind closed eyes during a work call. A sudden, overwhelming love for a stranger on the subway, so acute it makes your eyes water. A pressure at the crown of your head, like a warm hand pressing down. The feeling of being watched from the inside. You tell no one. You have read enough to know how it sounds. You have read enough to know that this is either a genuine reorganization of your nervous system or a psychological event requiring professional attention. And the literature is not definitive on where the line is. You start keeping a journal. You date every entry. You write down the time. But the thing with opening is that you cannot control what comes through. Level 3, the crisis. This is the part nobody posts about. The heat in your spine becomes a pressure. The pressure becomes pain. Real pain, radiating, asymmetric, arriving without warning at 3 in the morning and lasting 90 minutes. Your GP finds nothing on an MRI. A neurologist finds nothing. A chiropractor finds mild tension in the thoracic region. You spend $4,200 on appointments that rule out everything structural. The emotional releases are worse. You cry in your car for 45 minutes over something that happened in 1998. You feel a rage so clean and sourceless, it frightens you. You stop being able to tolerate alcohol, fluorescent lighting, large crowds. A birthday dinner at a restaurant leaves you overstimulated for 3 days. Your skin becomes strange, hypersensitive, like a sunburn from inside. You quit the breathwork class because it makes things worse. You find a Kundalini Research Network forum. You read other people's accounts. A retired schoolteacher in Oregon describes your exact symptoms. A man in the Netherlands spent 4 years functionally incapacitated. A woman in Auckland says hers lasted 6 months and then resolved completely. You read these accounts in the order that feels most useful. There's a thing in the literature called a Kundalini syndrome. It has a clinical profile: increased sensitivity, heat phenomena, emotional volatility, disrupted sleep, spontaneous movements, perceptual changes. The researchers who take it seriously, and there are serious researchers who take it seriously at places like the Institute of Noetic Sciences, describe it as a transformational process that the Western nervous system is largely unprepared for. That does not make the 3 a.m. pain easier. You tell your mother you are having some health issues. You tell your manager you are managing some personal stress. You lose 6 pounds because food requires more energy than you have. But the word crisis implies it ends, and it does, eventually. Not cleanly, not on a schedule, not with a visible threshold. It simply, over a period of several months, begins to lift. Level 4, the integration. You are different now, and you know it, and you are not sure what to do with that information. The practices that once triggered the intensity, seated meditation, certain pranayama sequences, extended silence, now feel like maintenance rather than ignition. You develop an intuitive sense of your own thresholds. You learn which environments you can tolerate and for how long. You eat differently, sleep differently. You require more solitude than you used to. Your relationships reconfigure around this. Some people leave, not dramatically. They simply become less frequent, then infrequent, then occasional. You have a friendship of 11 years that reduces itself to a birthday text, and that is fine, and also not fine. The version of you those friendships were built around is not quite the person standing in your kitchen now. You find a teacher. Not a celebrity teacher, not a brand, a real teacher, a woman in her 60s who was initiated through a Shavite lineage and who charges a modest monthly fee and who is available by email when you need her. She is the first person you have spoken to in person who understands what you are describing without requiring you to justify it. That relief is difficult to convey. The perceptual changes settle into something livable. The white light behind your eyes becomes a warmth. The spontaneous emotional surges become less frequent. The sensitivity remains, but becomes navigable. You learn by trial and error over many months how to move through the world with a nervous system that now processes everything slightly louder than it used to. You begin to experience something that the literature calls samadhi and that you would describe to anyone who asked, which is no one, as a profound and impersonal quiet. It arrives during meditation. It arrives sometimes in the middle of washing dishes. It lasts between 90 seconds and several minutes. It is not bliss, exactly. It is the absence of the noise you never noticed until it stopped. But you are not what any of the books promised. You are not enlightened. You are not finished. You are a person with a job and a back that still aches sometimes, and a spiritual process that is apparently going to take longer than your personality wants to allow. Level 5, the dissolution. You are 47 years old. The question you used to ask, when will this be complete, stopped making sense somewhere in your late 30s. There is no completion. There's only the ongoing process of being reorganized and your relationship to that process and the quality of attention you bring to it on any given day. Your teacher retired. You sat with her in her apartment 2 months before she died, and she told you that the path does not end, only the urgency about it. You wrote that down. You have thought about it almost every day since. You have what you would call, if pressed, a stable practice. Meditation each morning, asana 3 times a week, silence on Sundays. You live alone. You have chosen this. The solitude is not loneliness. You understand the difference in your body now, not just your mind. You have close relationships, 2 or 3, real ones, built on the post-crisis version of yourself. Your oldest friend, the one who stayed, calls you every Sunday from Melbourne. You talk for an hour. You do not explain most of this to her. She does not need you to. The perceptual field that used to arrive in flashes is now simply how things look, a sustained clarity, an awareness beneath the awareness. You have read that some lineages call this sahaja, natural, spontaneous, effortless. You are cautious about applying any name to it. Names narrow it. What you can say is this. The self that began this process at 32 in a yoga studio 4 blocks from a job you have since left is not the self writing in this journal now. It is not a better self necessarily. It is a different one that has been through something and knows it and carries that knowing lightly enough to continue. You had dinner last night with a woman you know through a mutual friend, and she's in her early 30s. She mentioned casually that she started going to yoga for her back. She mentioned casually that something strange happened in class last week, a warmth, a sensation. She couldn't explain it. She laughed it off. You did not say much. You passed her the salt. She has no idea what she is at the beginning of. The cycle continues.